Turkey continues to play an integral role in this process, given its strategic location, its understanding of the region's complex relationships, and its longstanding partnership with the United States. Now, even when the United States and Turkey do not see eye to eye, we work closely together, we maintain open channels of diplomatic and military communication, and we continue to support one another as NATO allies. Recent ISIL attacks in France, in Turkey, in Lebanon, and against a Russian airliner in Egypt have demonstrated ISIL's reach as well as its ruthlessness. ISIL has also terrorized civilians and created unlivable conditions in the territory under its control, from which countless Iraqis and Syrians have risked their lives to escape. Thus, we stand united in our commitment to eliminate this scourge. Now, despite these recent and ongoing atrocities, we shouldn't lose sight of the progress that we, along with our partners, are making in our efforts to degrade this organization. In the 14 months since we brought together 65 members, including Turkey, in the Counter-ISIL Coalition, we've launched over 8,500 airstrikes that have diminished ISIL's military operations, impeded its command and control, and deprived it of over 40% of the territory it once controlled in Iraq. We have pushed ISIL back from the critical border towns in Kobani and Tel Abyad in Syria, and from Tikrit in Sinjar in Iraq. And we have also helped secure over 85% of the Turkey-Syria border. Our defense cooperation with Turkey has been integral to these efforts. In July, our ability to target ISIL was greatly enhanced when we reached agreement with Turkey on the use of its bases. We have since deployed F-15, F-16, and A-10 aircraft to Incirlik, which have enabled us to strike hard and often against ISIL targets in Syria. We've also deployed tanker aircraft, which further increase the effectiveness of our strike aircraft. In addition, Turkey has been flying on the coalition air tasking order against ISIL targets in Syria since August and continues to deepen its contributions to the air campaign. Our forces, along with other allies that have or will soon operate from Turkish soil, also send a powerful message of allied solidarity in the face of threats to Turkey's own territory and citizens. A key challenge now is to seal off both sides of the remaining 98 kilometers of the Turkish-Syrian border. As Secretary Kerry said following meetings with President Erdogan earlier this week in Paris, Turkey is clear in its interest to close off the movement of ISIL recruits and smuggled material and is committed to doing so. Turkey is stepping up its efforts to detain, arrest, and prosecute foreign terrorist fighters north of the border, while joining us in determining the right combination of air support and coalition Turkish and opposition forces south of the border. As the attacks in Paris exposed, greater information sharing is essential among all countries working to combat ISIL. We are encouraging our EU allies to adopt an EU passenger name record system, improve information sharing with Turkey, and more robustly monitor suspected foreign terrorist fighters when they return home. Now, I do not want to give the impression in discussing this progress that there is any sense of complacency within the U.S. government about the difficulty of the mission ahead. Clearly, there is much that remains to be done. But with dozens of nations sharing a common purpose and millions of Syrians and Iraqis bearing witness to the bankruptcy of ISIL's ideology, neither should we doubt the outcome. It is often said that the greatest victims in modern war are the civilians, and the war against ISIL is no exception. Each day we are confronted with stories and heartbreaking images of the terrible hardships suffered by refugees fleeing from Syria and Iraq. 2 weeks ago, I was in Adana and Istanbul with Deputy Secretary of State Tony Blinken, where we met some of these refugees. We saw firsthand Turkey's generosity as the country has opened its doors to 2.3 million refugees, the greatest number hosted by a single country worldwide. By its own account, Turkey has invested over $8 billion toward their care and well-being, and the Turkish Coast Guard is working overtime to rescue individuals attempting dangerous sea voyages, reportedly over 68,000 rescued so far this year. I was particularly touched by our encounters with Syrian children, who, despite having endured, in some cases, over half a lifetime of war, still had light in their eyes and mischief in their grins. We must take steps to ensure that they don't become a lost generation. It is clear that Turkey cannot bear the burden alone. The dramatic increase in asylum seekers flocking to European countries in recent months underscores the need for coordinated and comprehensive solutions that focus on saving lives, ensuring the human rights of all migrants are respected, and promoting orderly and humane migration policies. The agreement reached between the EU and Turkey last week is a step in the right direction to meeting these goals, and we welcome the EU's announcement of €3 billion fund for refugee assistance and resettlement. The United States remains committed to doing its part. Of the $4.5 billion we have provided to address humanitarian needs resulting from the Syrian crisis, $325 million in humanitarian assistance has assisted Turkey directly through UN organizations and NGOs in order to support the operation of over 100 schools and to provide shelter, medical centers, safe spaces for children, and cash assistance for vulnerable families. Our embassy in Ankara is also programming $1 billion in aid into Syria. This money is helping over 1 million Syrians who are still in the country by supporting local councils in maintaining public services and responding to destroyed infrastructure and civilian casualties. Yet with only 54% of the UN's humanitarian appeal funded, it is clear that we need the international community to do much more. As Turkey grapples with the instability across its southern border, we cannot turn a blind eye to the threats Turkey endures within its own space. I would be remiss in discussing this panel's theme of Turkey's Middle East challenges without addressing the breakdown last July of the 2-year PKK ceasefire and the consequent resumption of fighting between the PKK and government security forces. Let me be clear. The State Department has formally designated the PKK as a terrorist organization for nearly 2 decades, and we recognize Turkey's right to defend itself. But more war is not in the interest of any of Turkey's citizens. The PKK's path has led to 40,000 deaths in 30 years. We have called on the PKK to renounce violence and resume peaceful engagement with the government. We have also urged the Turkish government to respond proportionately in response to PKK attacks and to take all feasible precautions to protect civilians. We hope to see a renewed commitment to finding a peaceful resolution of this conflict. For those Turkish Kurds who feel marginalized in Turkey, there are alternatives to the dead end offered by the PKK. This year marked the first time in the history of the Turkish Republic that a Kurdish-led political party entered parliament. It is the ballot and not the bullet that will ensure Turkey's Kurds an equitable voice in their country's governance. And I know everyone is looking forward after this panel to hearing Mr. Demirtas speak shortly about the HDP's vision for the country. Last week, we were troubled by the unfortunate incident between Russian and Turkish air forces, which has increased tensions between Moscow and Ankara. As President Obama has said, Turkey, like every country, has a right to defend its territory and airspace. He also stressed the need for Turkey and Russia to work together to de-escalate tensions and find a diplomatic way forward. This incident serves as a reminder that Russia's current emphasis on bolstering Assad by attacking the moderate opposition runs counter to the goals that Russians say they support, creating conditions for a peaceful transition in Syria and defeating ISIL. It also underscores the importance of moving forward on a political track in Syria as quickly as possible. The United States has been clear that military might alone cannot resolve the crisis. We also need a political transition, which Secretary Kerry has been working tirelessly to achieve. The meeting of the International Support Group for Syria held last month in Vienna marked the first time that all key countries, including Turkey, came together to discuss these issues. At that meeting, we reached agreement on a path ahead. Negotiations between the Syrian opposition and the Syrian regime under the auspices of the United Nations, a transition toward a more inclusive, representative government, a new constitution followed by free elections, and alongside this political process, a ceasefire in the civil war, even as we continue to fight against ISIL. Now, there are still disagreements among the parties, most critically over the fate of Bashar Assad, but that is all the more reason to pursue our diplomatic efforts and to begin negotiations. Every day lost means more lives lost. Before closing, let me say a brief word about 2 other countries in the Middle East. On Libya, Turkish diplomats have been constructive and reliable partners in supporting the efforts of the international community and the UN to attain a political agreement between Libyan parties. Turkey's engagement will continue to be important as new UN envoy Martin Kobler attempts to finalize an agreement that has the support of majorities within the Libyan parties. And finally, I would note that Turkey and Israel have a natural interest in working together, and we hope they can normalize relations soon. I've spoken for long enough. Let me close by thanking MEI for your insights, commitment, and hard work, which helped to build an enduring friendship between Turkey and the United States. Thank you.